start the recording so we can use this discussion today to load into our e-forum for later viewing and for people who couldn't join us today. So today, the CO Forum is kicking off International Ops Fest in conjunction with Operations Nation in the UK. It's not really Operations Week, that's next week, but we thought we had this great topic and we had Deborah and Allyson with us today that we would kind of take advantage of it, make it the CO Forum kickoff on International Ops Fest. So we have a lot of guests with us today. We have people who are considering joining the CO Forum, and of course we have our regular members, and we'll have directors here with us. So it's a lot of fun, and you'll get to know some of them through the chat and in the conversations that we have. Operations Nation is an organization. It's based in the UK, and it's designed specifically for startup operations executives. I encourage anybody, and let me see if I can grab the link real quick, who doesn't know who they are, to go check them out. Here's the link right here, because they have some great services, a lot of free things. They've got a great Slack channel. It's a great group, and we kind of work together on different things. So it's worth connecting and seeing, especially what they're doing next week for Operations Week. That said, I'm going to get this started by introducing, with a little intro on Deborah and Allyson. And Deborah Lindsay, she's a very good friend of the CO Forum. She's a CO Forum member, and she also serves as executive director at Environmental Volunteers in Silicon Valley. Since 72, that's 1972, Environmental Volunteers has promoted the understanding of and the responsibility for the environment through hands-on learning. Deborah, when she first came to the CO Forum, was a COO at Pitch Hub. As I mentioned, she's ED now at Environmental Volunteers, and she's also served as adjunct professor at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and as operations advisor at Clean Oceans International. I am super excited that Deborah's here with us today, because today it's kind of fun. She's on the other side of the table and presenting to us and sharing her knowledge with us. Allyson Mitchell, she currently serves as VP of Sustainability at Mobile reCell in Indianapolis. Michael Cook, who I think is here with us right now as well, he's a CO Forum member and COO at Mobile reCell, and he graciously introduced me to Allyson a couple months back, I believe, when Allie brought up the topic. Allie, who's here with us today, brought up the topic of sustainability. It's like, we need to have that around one of our sessions. So Allyson was ready to go and willing to come discuss this topic with us. And she also has a really great background, diverse in environmental sustainability, public policy, design, and law. And she's a coalition builder, and she claims to be a fierce advocate for pursuing the circular economy. And I know that's true. We're grateful she can be here and collaborate with Deborah today on this presentation. Very excited for it. As I mentioned, it will be recorded, so if anybody has to jump off early, we'll have it uploaded to our e-forum and also to our YouTube channel. Welcome, everybody. Glad you can be here with us today, and I'm going to turn it over to Deborah and Allyson. It's all yours.
Great. Thank you so much. There's our introduction. Okay. So thank you so much for coming today. We're thrilled to have you as we talk about sustainability today. Here's just a quick overview of the agenda. As Laura said, we're going to be talking Sustainability 101 today, and we're going to be covering these topics: defining sustainability, challenging sustainability, how it's the business imperative of it, the past, present, and future approaches to sustainability, and how to implement sustainability. And then we have time at the end to share some additional resources and hear your questions and have a robust discussion.
And, again, it's lovely to see you all. Thank you to Laura and Chuck and the COO Forum. And welcome to our guests from the International Ops Festival. Just so you know, we will not be talking about the doom and gloom of sustainability or of climate change or any of that, but we will be giving you a broad overview of the topic, and we hope that we're going to inspire you to take back something to your companies that you'll feel confident wherever you are in your sustainability journey. But please put your questions in the chat as we go, and as Allyson said, we will have a Q&A at the end, and I know that Laura and Fiona will help us cover those questions as they come in.
Great. So we have a little bit of a color coding system here. When you see a blue slide like this, it means that we're going to be taking an interactive poll. So have your cell phone ready so that you can scan the QR code that pops up, and we'll have just a handful of polls as we go through to sort of get a sense of where we are, where you are in the audience with your journey in sustainability. Okay, so let's jump into defining sustainability.
So here is the definition. Okay, the definition of sustainability is that it meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. And this exists when there's a balance between economic, social, and environmental needs within a system. And as we're talking about business, this is known as the triple bottom line, or people, planet, and profits.
So instead of just a single bottom line approach to running a business where the financial fitness of a company is measured solely by its profit margins, the triple bottom line approach balances profit imperatives with social and environmental imperatives as organizational drivers.
And you can see this Venn diagram on the left shows the original concept of sustainability, where it's kind of at the center of these overlapped principles of people, planet, and profits. But now the evolution of it has been that it's nested in this model on the right that's more accurate, and it depicts that sustainability exists when we recognize that everything was in this finite planet system that we have, and it's optimized when the environment is healthy, when society is thriving, and when the economy is prosperous.
And as the thinking of sustainability has grown, so have the supporting frameworks and rating systems for organizations to orient around and communicate their efforts in this space. As you can see, there are been a proliferation of rating system, and here's just an example of some of the more common ones that you may have seen in the world. The USGBC's LEED, that's directed towards buildings, Energy Star, USDA Organic, certified, Rainforest Certified, Forest Stewardship Council, or FSC, which you may have seen on paper products, Cradle to Cradle, Green Seal, and so on. And for the most part, there's a rating system for nearly every industry. Materials have rating systems, geographic locations, such as cities and municipalities, business types, etc. And just to note that some of these are accreditations, or they have accreditations associated with them that are for people and kind of a professional development realm. And some are certifications for things like buildings, products, events, businesses, etc. And as the space has expanded beyond environmental into social, those labels and those certifications have just continued to expand. And so some of these are also kind of oriented towards having a seal of approval. You either have it or you don't. And some have various levels of achievement, such as gold, silver, and platinum.
Here are a few other reporting frameworks used by various rating agencies, which is great because it shows that there really is something for every industry and type of business. But there's also an overlap, and to be honest, with so many options, it has created some confusion, extra work, particularly if you're choosing to go with a couple of frameworks, and frustration because there has been cases where some things are competing with, what to do. And there are attempts now to align and consolidate and simplify much of what's out there. So hopefully it'll be more streamlined in the future. But the point that we're trying to make here is that these frameworks are at least a really good place to start. You may get overwhelmed, you may get frustrated, and that would be reasonable, particularly if you're using several frameworks, but it's going to be a better way to go than trying to probably go on it on your own, and hopefully you can get the clarity you need as you go. So, speaking of starting, we're going to give you a little bit of a history lesson here. In the modern sustainability movement really began with this book, Silent Spring, that was written by Rachel Carson in 1962. The book documented the environmental harm that was being caused by the indiscriminate use of pesticides. And then in 1968, the Earthrise photo was taken by the Apollo 8 astronauts. And it was really the first time that we as humans saw ourselves on this small, finite ecosystem, Earth. And it gave us this perspective that we really only have one planet, and that we're just surrounded by this vast void of a universe. Earth Day started in 1970, which was because of inspired because of the oil spills that were in Santa Barbara. And we don't need to go over all the rest of these, but some of you may remember that these were the very beginning stages of the broader movement today.
And whoops, there we go. And so here's where we are today. The focus on regenerative design, which is an approach to designing systems that rebuild and regenerate our natural ecosystems to make them really better, more than just sustain them at a minimal level. And the use of biomimicry as a way to have nature-inspired problem solving, and which includes things like the circular economy. That is really just an expansion on your traditional 3 R's of reduce, reuse, recycle, which involves a new relationship that we have with materials, including things like sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, and then lastly, at the end of that is recycling. And the point of that is really to just maintain the integrity and the value of materials in the highest form possible for as long as possible. And to today, where you see, the rise of the Chief Sustainability Officer, there's been just a ton of companies hiring that new role in the C-suite in recent years. To the controversy sometimes around the purchasing of carbon offsets. If you haven't seen this John Oliver piece, by the way, it's a great quick education on the pros and cons of purchasing carbon offsets. And the current space we're in now, where you hear a lot about ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. And of course, the UN's Sustainable Development Goals are a big pillar of sustainability that guides many corporate actions.
And we've got more to go. I mean, as we were talking about better integrated reporting and frameworks that are more in alignment with each other, people are using AI now for sustainability. We've got more renewable energy projects that are being built in support of infrastructure. There's also more happening in the social justice area, where they're expanding the DEI, or the diversity, equity, and inclusion framework, to include justice and access. So it's now JDEIA, and which is really good. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Getting sustainability practices in your company at a broader level, so that the triple bottom line principles are embedded throughout the organization. So it's not just the Chief Sustainability Officer, it's not just the green team, but everyone at every level is steeped in sustainability and bringing it to the workplace. But first, before we talk about that, we've got to overcome some corporate mindsets that have been hindrances actually in moving the sustainability movement forward earlier. And it comes to something called shareholder primacy. And I'm going to give a little bit, this is dense, but I'm going to give a little bit of a background in where this came from. So I don't know if anybody knows this guy, Milton Friedman. He really developed this concept of shareholder primacy. And he was an American economist and author, and he wrote a book and a paper in New York Times in 1970. So this was after Silent Spring and the Earthrise photo. He wrote, "There is one and only one social responsibility of business, and it's to use its resources to engage in activities designed to increase profits. And as long as business engages in an open and free competition without deception or fraud, it's fair game to do what must be done to maximize shareholder value." And I'm doing a little bit of paraphrasing here, saying that corporations have a fiduciary responsibility by the CEO and board to maximize its profits above all else. And the New York Times article called Social Responsibility of Business to Increase Its Profits. The link is in the end of our resource page. And then also his book, Capitalism and Freedom. There's a PDF. You can read the whole thing, and it's at the end of our resource page as well. So all of this is to say that much of the challenge of sustainability has been this concept that corporations can't spend money on sustainability projects like investing in renewable tech because they would cause the shareholders to lose some of their profit margins, which the CEO compensation is often tied to. So CEOs have chosen to go short-term, often choosing unsustainable options instead of choosing long-term solutions that are good for the triple bottom line, which we've been talking about. But this may cause company stocks to go up, but if we were to invest in sustainability, then they may go down, and that was the problem. That's been something that we've been challenged by. But I'll point out that this was not always the way, that this has not been the way that American businesses were developed early on. Prior to this, they were set up and operated for decades in the US, and I'm not sure internationally we have international companies, but in the US, they initially held the purpose that were overtly public in nature, involving the development of local public transportation, finance, and much needed infrastructure, and served municipalities, religious organizations, charitable organizations, educational and business purposes. And thankfully, this kind of thinking is coming back around.
So just to juxtapose that way of thinking against today with Larry Fink, who's chairman and CEO of BlackRock Investment Services, who wrote in his 2022 letter to CEOs saying, in today's globally interconnected world, a company must create value for and be valued by its full range of stakeholders. So expanding on that idea of who is a stakeholder in order to deliver long-term value for its shareholders. We focus on sustainability, not because we are environmentalists, but because we are capitalists and fiduciaries to our clients. So it's really flipping that back to thinking about way beyond the fiduciary duty of the organization as the sole driver and the protection of environmental and social causes as well in order to allow for fiduciary responsibility. So this really gets to the heart of fiduciaries managing money and or property over the long term, recommending companies and individuals are focused more on durable sustainability and all the stakeholders, not just the shareholders. So that's a big shift that has occurred in recent years, and you have seen that in the way corporations are acting.
So, and the call has been heard, as Allyson just mentioned. The Business Roundtable released a statement of purpose on corporations that was signed in 2019 by 181 CEOs. I believe it's been signed now more, and they're leading by their commitment to, or they're committed to lead their companies for the benefit of all stakeholders, not just shareholders. And of course, that includes customers, employees, suppliers, communities, and their shareholders, and not just to work for profit, but also to protect the environment, to build good working conditions, and to be transparent with their business practices so that they can deliver long-term value. And that's the change that's come back, long-term value. This has been signed by the CEOs of Visa, Xerox, Coca-Cola, Apple, I mean, all of them, not all of them, but many of them. Alex Gorsky, CEO of Johnson & Johnson, said that this affirms the essential role of corporations can play in improving our society when CEOs are truly committed to meeting the needs of all stakeholders, aka not just shareholders. And this is huge because it starts to reverse back what Friedman started 50 years previous.
But we can't go on without acknowledging that signing a document and actually doing something valuable are two different things. And what's happened is that some companies have been greenwashing. This is a term you have probably heard of before, but this is when an organization spends more time and money on marketing itself as environmentally friendly than on actually minimizing its environmental impact. And this is not good because it misleads customers, creates a lot of doubt and deception, and they are they don't have confidence when they buy a product or service that they are making a positive environmental impact when false claims are made. And that is a motivator. About 48% of customers say they will buy a product or service as little as possible if they find out a company is greenwashing. So there's not only the positive benefit that customers are more motivated to purchase and products and services that align with their values, but they will turn that on you if they suspect or find out that you are greenwashing. And this really undermines the efforts of companies that are truly trying to reduce their environmental impact and create more sustainable products. Just creates confusion in the marketplace. Plus, it can be a waste of resources. If customers are misled into believing that they are purchasing a product that is making an environmental difference, they may waste resources on products that have no or limited environmental benefits. Okay. So let's move on to how folks on this call are approaching sustainability and what they're doing at their companies currently. We're going to give you a little bit of a mental break and do our first Mentimeter poll. And I'm going to shift over. This QR code will appear when I shift over to the next right here. So this is the exact same QR code if I caught you in the middle of the snapshot, but want you to take a picture, open that up, and rate your organization's progress on sustainability.
And I don't think that this group is going to have, I have no clue, but we can see that some people are at the beginning of their journey. And oh yeah. Made a little bit of progress. That's good. We're doing pretty good. Great. Anybody else still to? We're all over it. Yes.
Ooh, we like to hear that.
That's probably the mobile recall representative there. Woo. Okay. All right. Everybody in? Good. So yeah, we got a big spread. We're making a little bit of progress. This is good. We do want to hear, we're going to have time at the end. We want to talk about your progress. Okay.
So we move on to the second poll?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep your phone handy.
So which actions does your organization currently take to demonstrate sustainability? And you can choose all that apply. And we've got executive pay is tied to ESG, so environmental social governance outcomes, C-suite sustainability leader, you're publishing your annual report, you've got publicly stated ESG goals, you've got an internal green team. None of the above, none of the above. Oh.
And you can choose multiple here, so.
Yeah. C-suite leader. I got nothing. Okay. Well, this is good to know because we got lots to work with then. Publicly stated ESG goals, internal green team. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. Anybody else still putting their? Okay.
Right. Let's go back here. All right. You still seeing the slides?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you have witnessed and been hinted at in the last poll, there are a multitude of approaches to sustainability at the company level. And often companies start at one point on the spectrum and progress along it as they learn, develop internal resources, and deepen their commitment to sustainability and ESG. And this is not to say that there's a right or wrong starting point. You have to start somewhere after all. But rather, it's good to understand where you are today and be taking efforts to improve both commitments and outcomes. So this sort of spectrum diagram shows the range of the sustainability effort being led by marketing, which is very common as a place to start, because people feel the need, or organizations feel the need, to have a communication strategy around what they're doing for sustainability. And it's often tasked in the marketing department first to develop that response. But as you progress on that journey, you start to realize you need to have some additional internal resources committed to delivering on and those initiatives. Then you sort of move into, being led by an internal team that has a budget. That then progresses to somebody in the C-suite having the position that has authority to get projects started and likely a budget as well. And then when you get into the top tiers of, commitment and action, you have executive compensation is tied to ESG performance. So as we were mentioning before, when it was traditionally executive compensation was tied to, shareholder value, now you're seeing it being a dual compensation, where you're really putting that emphasis on the progress you're making towards those comprehensive goals. And then to really be an overachiever in this space, organizations are engaging with the board and informing them, and investors as well are being screened based on their commitment to ESG initiatives. So when you think about the process of approaching sustainability, it is an iterative process, and it's a bumpy road. It's a new path for a lot of organizations. And so at the door, check your ego and check your ability to really develop timelines about this. That's something you have to be able to go in knowing you've got to stay nimble. It really will depend on the culture of the organization, the values, both stated and lived out, the leadership's commitment to these issues, the knowledge and experience that you have internally, the rules, regulations, and incentives that are impacting your industry and your organization, the strategic partnerships that you already have in place and are able to leverage through your journey, and then what industry you're in and what industry trade associations or rating systems are invoked by that. So it's, one of the things that you should keep in mind is that it will continue, this wheel just continues to turn. Data is a very important part of this process, both for determining where you have ROI and how to select those low-hanging fruits, and how to celebrate the wins and share the news through the evaluation and communication phase as well.
Yeah. So we're going to go now into implementation, but I will just say, don't get discouraged by that graph that had a lot of wheels and things moving, because, by using the frameworks that we were sharing with you earlier, they're going to help walk you through the processes. So, okay, implementing. Here are some first action steps. So for those of you who've done, nothing and you want to get yourselves started, this is mildly in an order, but not necessarily. So what you're asking is, what's going on with your company right now? And you want to discover and learn how to begin. And the best way to start is to just say, well, let's identify a champion who is going to be in charge of this project. And you can create a green team to support you in this, because, there is work to be done that is easier, of course, when it's shared. And maybe it's just you for now. We have a lot of arguments for why it should be the COO, which we'll just discuss a little bit in the future here. But if you do identify another person, just make sure that that person has got a connection to the C-suite champion, because it will help smooth their process through things and make sure that there really is some bones and meat on those bones. You're going to need to do an initial assessment. Now, one of my favorites is with B Corp, but there are many, and we have given you resources for looking at those other ones. And you're going to need to gather your metrics. You're going to identify your risks and inefficiencies and understand the roles and responsibilities of your organization. Those are internal first steps. And then externally, you want to look around. You can look around and see what your competitors are doing. Is anyone else in your space that has approached sustainability already? And what platforms and frameworks have they used? You can turn to the SEC and see what ESG reporting requirements are that are going to impact your sector. And you can look and see what's happening along your supply chain. You want to make sure that your suppliers are also considering sustainability. And then what are their suppliers, what are they doing as well? So, deeper, you're going to look.
So some of the next steps to take is really to just assess the situation. As Deborah mentioned, you're going to be gathering information, and you want to define your priorities based on ROI. And that's really where you hear about materiality assessments. That's what they're talking about when they say that. And then it's you have to the time to bring in and develop board support is really a strategic decision based on the leadership and the culture and the values and the commitment that your organization has already made. So whoever that internal champion is, and maybe it's you, have to make a real decision as to the best moment to bring them in. Do they want to see the behind the scenes work where you're gathering that data, or do they want to be engaged once you've made a determination? So that's a very individualistic timing decision. And then you want to be able to empower staff throughout the organization. As we were talking earlier about sort of the spectrum, having sustainability leaders, champions, and advocates embedded throughout the organization will really bode well for the long-term success of your organization's journey. So you can start that right away. And then aligning with the employee volunteering or corporate philanthropic efforts is also a way to sort of infuse this throughout the organization. Communicating those successes is important, not only to your shareholders and your customers, but to your internal team. They're doing the heavy lifting on making those successes come to light. So you need to celebrate and communicate those. And then, as I mentioned before, it's an iterative process. So just keep going and know that no one expects perfection, because this is such a new and challenging space for people to rethink the way they're doing business.
And this is one of my favorite ones, the role of the COO, because of our ability and our, because we're embedded in the organization, across all the departments. It really is something that the COO can do more successfully, or at least oversee more successfully, say, than others in the organization. And you just really want to take this opportunity to, as we said, examine your supply chain, make sure you're sourcing sustainable materials from environmentally and socially responsible suppliers. You evaluate your energy use, take steps to reduce it when it's unnecessary. Utilize renewable energy opportunities. There's so much out there in terms of generation. There's power purchase agreements. And you can look at your water usage. It's called your footprints, your water footprint, your energy footprint, and address any inefficiencies that you can see.
You also want to review your packaging and transportation methods to make sure you can reduce your carbon footprint, both in the materials and the energy that is expended in those parts of operations. You can implement policies and procedures that reduce waste and increase recycling. That will come along with the need to train your employees on not only how to do these new practices on the day-to-day of their job, but also why it's important, and make sure they're engaged with the results of those efforts. And then supporting sustainable initiatives in the local community is a fantastic way to build internal capacity, connections to the community, because a lot of things you'll find is, for example, recycling, your organization is going to be dependent upon the existing infrastructure in the local community. So you really want to build those partnerships with the folks that are in charge of that infrastructure.
And I'm just going to add here, can you just quickly go back, Allyson, to that one? So in terms of supporting sustainable initiatives in the local community, I was just at a conference in South San Francisco, and it's really important that when you go into your community, that you're not just giving back to organizations that you are immediately aligned with. It's important to go to undersourced communities because they're really in need of support, and probably more than any other organization right now. So when you're reaching out to see who you can connect with, try to find organizations that are in what are called redlined communities, and that means undersourced resource communities.
Okay, so on to the next Menti poll. I will advance this forward so we can all start the voting. And this is also a multiple answers opportunity for you. So click as many of those as apply to you.
So which actions to advance sustainability do you feel equipped to take as your next steps? And this is our last poll, so give it all you've got. Engage with the CEO and board. Good. Create and lead an internal team. Yes, that's a really good one. Identify an internal champion. Yep. Community partners. Yes. Join a green focused trade association. Yes. Industry policies and incentives. Yep. Applicable rating systems. Assess immediate climate risks. Yeah, we didn't really talk about climate risks, but there are a lot, and we can discuss that further when we go into the Q&A. Community partners. Yeah, the internal champion. CEO and board. Yep. CEO and board, particularly seeing if you can get the board to create a green or sustainability mission that gets adopted and baked into your organization as an imperative is really important. Anyone else? Research, we've got, some leaders here. Internal champion, reach out to community partners. Yeah, great. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right. So now we're moving on to sharing some additional resources with you and doing some Q&A and open discussion.
So these are some of, sorry, Allyson, go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that out of the all of the frameworks that we highlighted and the organizations that Allyson and I are aware of, these are really some of our favorite ones, and we've I don't know whether they're our favorite, but they're a really good place to begin. And you won't make too many mistakes if you follow along with some of these. You will have an opportunity to go deeper when you begin with these organizations.
We'll be sharing all of this, so you don't have to write it all down.
And then for those who really find it important, these are the articles referenced. And that's us.
So what questions do folks have? And I know there's been some activity in the chat. I haven't been really watching that. So want to give folks an opportunity to add additional questions now, and also encourage you to reach out to Deborah and I as you are looking